Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Smokestack Cowl, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description where you will find both right and left-handed video tutorials, and if you scroll down a little bit from there, you'll see a link to the written pattern, as well as all the supplies you need and any other tutorials that I'll mention here today. To make this pattern, you will need one skein of Red Heart gemstone, shown here in the Onyx colorway. This is a really beautiful bulky weight yarn. It is 100% acrylic and it has 312 yards. We'll use almost the whole thing to make this cowl. You'll also need a US N or a 9mm hook. This one is by Furls. And here we have the finished cowl. Now I made this one, as I said, using almost the entire skein, 12 inches tall, and it's 31 inches all the way around, 15.5 inches laid flat like this. Here you can see a couple pictures of how it looks on. Now, since everybody likes their cowls a slightly different length and some people prefer infinity scarves, I've also included in the written pattern instructions on how to make any custom length for your cowl. Of course, if you change the length by adding stitches, or if you decide you actually want it taller and would prefer to add more rows, you will need an additional ball of yarn. As you can see here, the stitch pattern I've used here, the overlapping post stitch, has a lot of really great texture. So let's go ahead and start making our smokestack cowl. To begin the smokestack cowl, we're going to start with a slip knot on our hook and then foundation double crochet 70. This is a technique that does not use the foundation chain. If you haven't used it before, you just go straight to making the double crochets right in your first row. So if you'd like a video tutorial specifically for the foundation double crochet, I do have one here on the Moogly YouTube channel and linked at the link in the description. But basically, real quick, you start with 2 chains, then I'll yarn over, go in the first chain I made, the one furthest from the hook, and I like to go under that back hump of the chain there, pull up a loop, and that will become the chain right there at the bottom of our first stitch. Then I'll yarn over and pull up a loop through that to begin our double crochet, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And now we have the first double crochet made. For the other 69 double crochets, we yarn over, go under those 2 loops at the bottom of the previous stitch, those ones that made up the chain, yarn over and pull through to make the chain at the bottom of that stitch, yarn over, pull through up through there to start our double crochet, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So just continue like that until you have 70 foundation double crochets made, or if you're using creating a custom size, any multiple of 2. So any even number of double crochets. If you prefer not to use the foundation double crochet technique, if you'd prefer to chain and just double crochet into the chain, you can simply chain 2 more than the stitches you want to make, and then skip the first 3 chains. Count that as a first double crochet, and then double crochet on across. The main thing is to end up with 70 double crochets at the end if you're following this size, or an even number if you're making your own custom size. So I'm going to make a few more here to demo with, and I will meet you at the end of round 1. Okay, so at the end of round 1, you should have 70 double crochets or any even number if you're changing it up a little bit. Now, as I said, this is a round. Right now it looks like a row, but we need to turn it into a round. So what we're going to do is carefully, without twisting our rows, we just want to fold it together so that we can slip stitch right in that very first double crochet that we made. Get your hook right in the top there, and just yarn over and slip stitch right to it. Now, you'll notice that leaves the bottom of that row unconnected and loose, which isn't really the way we want it to be, but it's very simple. When we go to weave in our ends, you just go ahead and put this yarn end on your needle like you normally would anyway, and then just sew it right to the bottom of that last double crochet we made, and that will close it right on up. So then we're ready for round 2. So round 2 is very simple. We simply chain 1 and then single crochet in each stitch around. Then when we get to the end of round 2, we join with the slip stitch to the first single crochet we made. So continue on around with round 2, and I will see you when we're ready for round 3. So at the end of round 2, you should have the same number of stitches that you had in round 1, all single crochets. And with that, we're ready to begin round 3. Round 3 begins with a chainless starting double crochet, which is what I like to do instead of a chain 3 start for a double crochet row. If you would prefer, you can chain 3 instead, or chain 2 and double crochet back in that first stitch, not counting the chain 2 as a stitch. It's really up to you, however you like to do it. I'm going to go ahead and demo the chainless starting double crochet very quickly right now, but there is, again, a separate tutorial for it here on the Moogly YouTube channel and linked at the link in the description. So to make this stitch, I pull my loop up high about to the height of a double crochet, then I anchor it with my finger, wrap that loop around my hook like so, go into that first stitch, yarn over, pull a loop through, yarn over, pull through that loop and behind the loop wound around my hook, yarn over and pull through those last 2 loops. Very carefully there. There we go. And then we are going to begin our repeat that will take us all the way, almost all the way around. We're going to front post treble crochet around the double crochet below the next stitch. So this is our next stitch right here. That would be a single crochet. So we want to go around the double crochet below it, the one it's worked into. So for a foundation treble crochet, we're going to yarn over twice. Then we go down to that double crochet, and from the front, we're going to go around the post, yarn over, pull that loop back behind the post, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2 to finish the stitch. Then that stitch behind it there, that single crochet that we just kind of worked right in front of, that's kind of considered basically already worked into. We've worked a stitch for that space, the front post treble. So we're going to go ahead and skip over that, and then in the next stitch, so the next single crochet after that, we're going to work a double crochet. Like so. So we want to make sure we're not increasing in this round. All the rounds of this cowl should all have 70 stitches or however many you had in your first round. So those 2 stitches are our basic repeat. Front post treble crochet around the next post stitch, or the next double crochet, I should say, down here in the row below the previous row. And then just double crochet in the next stitch of the previous row. Always making sure that you aren't working into the single crochet behind the post stitch you just made. So we continue that all the way around until we get to the end, and then there will be 1 stitch left that we'll need to work a front post treble crochet around before we join to that first double crochet we made. So I'm going to continue in my pattern here as you continue in yours, and I'll see you at the end of round 3. Okay, so I'm almost at the end here of round 3, and I've got 1 stitch left remaining right here. So this one I just wanted to go ahead and do on camera because it can be a little tricky if you haven't sewn this end closed yet. If you'd like to, you can go ahead, pull out your hook, put a stitch marker in that loop so you don't lose it, sew that end in before you make this stitch around this last post right here. But otherwise, you can just kind of hold onto it as you work. So I'm going to go ahead and yarn over twice, then come right down here to that very last double crochet we made. Just go right around it and you can just use your fingers to hold it in place there. Or like I say, if that gets real tricky, you can just sew the end in first. And then we just work that off as usual. And then we're ready to join to that first double crochet we made. So if you did a chain 3 instead, you can go ahead and slip stitch to that. Like so. And that is it for round 3. Okay, so then we're ready for round 4. And round 4 is very simple. It's exactly the same as round 2. We just chain 1 and single crochet in each stitch around. I do want to point out this means you single crochet in the double crochets and the front post trebles. Don't drop down to those single crochets that we sort of skipped over by working our post stitches in front of them before. Stay right at that top level of crochet and just single crochet in each one of those stitches on around. Join at the end and we'll be ready for round 5. Okay, so at the end of round 4, again, you should have 70 single crochets or whatever number you're going with. Round 5 begins with a chain 2, 1, 2, and this chain 2 will not count as a stitch. We are going to just ignore it as part of the pattern, and it's just going to lift us up so that we can make a front post treble crochet around the double crochet in the row below the previous row. Basically, we're going to be offsetting. If you'll remember, in round 3, we started with a double crochet, then a front post treble. This one, we're going to start with a front post treble and then do a double crochet so that we really can offset those post stitches. So I'll yarn over twice, and then I am going to find the double crochet that first single crochet is worked into right there, and just go right on around that. Now, if you've decided to start with a chain 2 and a double crochet rather than the chainless starting double crochet, you can experiment with making that post stitch around just the double crochet or the double crochet and the chain 2 and see what works best for you. Depending on the yarn and the tension in your gauge, it can give a slightly different look. It can help it disappear, or sometimes it makes it seems like it sticks out a little bit more. So just feel free to experiment that and find the method that works best for you and your yarn. So after we make that front post treble around the double crochet, then we go to the next stitch and double crochet in that one, in the next single crochet, remember. We don't want to make those double crochets anywhere but in that previous row, but for the front post trebles, we will drop down to those double crochets. They're a lot easier to work around than single crochets. So other than that, though, it is the same pattern on around. Since we began with front post treble, this time we'll end with a double crochet in the last stitch. So just keep working your way on around. Front post treble, double crochet, front post treble, double crochet, all the way around the cowl until you get to the end of round 5. Okay, so here I am at the end of round 5, and I have worked a double crochet into that very last stitch. So I just want to make sure that I join with a slip stitch to the top of the front post treble. And the yarn's gotten to a pretty dark point right here, so I hope you can see it. There's our front post treble right there. We don't want to join to the chain 2. We want to join to that post stitch, because that's the first real stitch of the round, if you will. If we join to that chain 2, we'd end up increasing, and we don't want to do that. So after we finish round 5, we have finished our repeat. It's rounds 2 through 5 over and over again, and all the way through round 27, which is actually a round 3 repeat. And that's where I stopped because that's when I was about to run out of yarn. So if you're using a different yarn, or you've got more yarn, or if you've changed those numbers may change for you too. But the point is to end on one of the rows where you're working the post stitches and double crochets rather than a single crochet row. So whatever odd numbered row brings you to the height you want, then it is time for the final round, which in the written pattern is round 28. Very simple. We're just going to chain 1 and half double crochet in each stitch around. Then join, break your yarn, don't break your arms, break your yarn, and weave in your ends, and you will be all set with your Smokestack cowl. And that's how to crochet the Smokestack cowl. As you can see, this overlapping post stitch is simple, but it gives such great texture. It's a little bit smoother on the inside, but it is going to be super cozy, warm, and really easy to wear. And I think this color is pretty gender neutral too. So anybody could wear the Smokestack cowl, and I hope you enjoy making it. If this video has helped you, please do give it a thumbs up, and please do subscribe to the Moogly YouTube channel. It really helps us out. And please give Red Heart Gemstone a try. I really enjoyed working with it, and I think you will too. Thanks so much for watching, everybody.